I'm going to show you 3 ways to cut a tier cake. By using different techniques, you can vary the size and types of your portions. The first way, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is to cut wedge-shaped slices, where you slice from the middle of the cake to the outer edge, and then rotate to cut from the middle to a little bit further around the outer edge. Slide your knife or a cake lifter underneath the cake, wiggle it a little bit to loosen the slice from the cake, and then pull it out. Here's a typical cake slice, a generous portion of layers of cake and filling surrounded by 2 sides of frosting. Now, as you can see, I've cut this top tier while it's still stacked on the cake, and the reason I can do that is because of the internal support structure within a tier cake. I have a different video on how to assemble a tier cake, so if you're interested in that, click the link up at the top of the screen or in the video description. If you want to cut the cake separately, taking it off the tier cake first, you can do that. All you need is a cutting board and an offset spatula, or you can use a cake lifter. Slice underneath this cake to separate it from the cake tier below it, and your spatula should be under the cake board that the top cake is sitting on. Lift the cake up on its board and move it to a cutting board, where you can then slice it. You can touch the frosting to balance the cake if the frosting has set. I find that the ideal temperature or time to cut a cake is after the frosting has set, so that it's firmed up and it's less messy. But you don't want it to be cold, so if the cake has been refrigerated, wait at least 2 hours after taking it out of the fridge. This wedge-shaped slice is a quick and easy way to cut small cakes, and it's also great if you have plenty of cake for the number of people you're serving, so you don't mind giving them very large slices. If you're trying to make your cake go further, maybe for a wedding cake where you're serving lots of people, then there are 2 different ways of cutting the cake that are better suited for that. I call this method the cutting board technique, and the idea is to cut the cake into strips and then divide those strips into smaller portions. Slide an offset spatula or cake lifter underneath the cake board and lift it up with the cake on it and lower it onto a cutting board. Cut across the cake an inch or 2 in, angling your knife to push the slice over onto the cutting board. Then cut this into pieces, usually 3 for this first slice, and these portions are perfect for frosting lovers. Cut the next slice another inch or 2 over, tipping it onto the cutting board, and for most slices I divide them down the middle and then in half again to make 4 portions. If the cake is really tall, I cut each piece in half the other way too, so that for each of these pieces the top half would be 1 portion and the bottom half would be another portion. So you'd get twice as many portions out of the cake, and that's perfect for a wedding cake or any other occasion where you have lots of other food and desserts, so you don't need very big servings of cake. Or if you have a lot of people to serve compared to the size of your cake, so you're trying to really stretch it to make as many portions as possible. Assuming your tier cake has a support structure inside with straws or dowels to hold up the higher tiers, you will need to remove those before cutting your slices. You can pinch them and pull them up and out of the cake, but it can be tricky to grip them since they're pushed down into the cake and there's nothing sticking up to hold onto. So another way is to use tweezers to pinch them and pull them up. For large cakes, which are wider than a cutting board, another way to serve them is to cut a ring a few inches within the outer edge, an inner circle, using little sawing motions with your knife to cut all the way down to the bottom of the cake around the whole circle, and then slice this ring of cake into portions. You can cut wide pieces if you want large portions, or if you're trying to serve as many people as possible, make the cuts much closer together to slice much narrower pieces. By cutting the circle within the cake, instead of having really long wedges, you'll be able to cut another round of slices out of the inner part of the cake, so you'll get a lot more portions this way. So, 3 very different ways to cut a tier cake. There is the wedge-shaped slice for the quickest and easiest way to cut a small cake, or to cut big portions if you have plenty of cake. The cutting board method, which lets you get the most number of portions out of a cake. And the circular method, or ring method, which is the easiest way to cut very wide cakes. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Visit my cake school on britishgirlbakes.com to learn hundreds of cake decorating techniques and designs, and join my Club Plus membership for access to every master course, mini course, live workshop, and 5-Minute Fridays. Thanks for watching.